The following video is the opinion of the missing truth. Further information has been researched or has been provided by those in connection to this case. News articles and/or information that is given or stated by law enforcement, family members, and/or per social media. Any person or persons is presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This video contains graphic images that some may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. On December 22, 2016, a body of a young female was found in an alley. She was partially clothed with only a gray t-shirt with tire tracks imprinted across her. Unfortunately, we see these kinds of headlines every day, assuming things about the deceased to desensitize ourselves, sheltering from the pain of the reality we live in. Not giving the violent crime scene a second thought, thinking their life choices is what led them there. But the body has a name. The body had a life with loving parents and twin daughters. The body has a beautiful face and a beautiful soul. The body has the voice of an angel when she sang. She's so much more than a body discarded in an alleyway. This is Taylor McAllister's story through the eyes of strangers. Taylor Ann McAllister was born on July 21, 1994 in Melbourne, Florida. As she grew up, her incredible voice and love for music shined through. At the age of 14, she bought a guitar, and before long, she was making her own videos of herself singing and playing. At 18, she moved out of her family's home. Like a lot of young adults, while desperately trying to find her way in life, she started to get sidetracked and knew she was too far from the life she once knew. She called her parents and explained her situation about experimenting with drugs, and she felt like she needed to come home. Her parents welcomed her back home with open arms. She moved back and got a job and seemed just fine. Her parents did not see drug addiction because she was doing so well. Then she met the man she would soon marry. He was a co-worker of hers working at the same restaurant she was working at. They entered into a relationship together, a romance and drug-related relationship, that is. They were both young and having fun, and at most people didn't see the harm in recreational drugs. They soon married and moved to Seattle, Washington, due to her husband's Coast Guard duty. As fate would have it, her parents received a text message from Taylor telling them the exciting news that she was pregnant, and pregnant with twins. After her husband was deployed, Taylor moved back home to Florida so she could be close to her family during her pregnancy. Her mother accompanied her to all of her prenatal visits, and Taylor passed all of the routine drug tests that they gave the pregnant women. It seemed she was back on a healthy track, and her future as a mother was looking bright. She had a cesarean to bring her beautiful baby girls into this world. After a woman has a C-section, she is usually prescribed pain medication while they heal. Taylor was prescribed Percocet, and it wasn't till this time her addiction started to show through. They noticed she was taking more pain medication than what was prescribed and was asking for refills too quickly. Over the next year, she struggled with addiction. At times, she would seem to be getting her life together and staying sober, and then she would relapse. In 2016, when Taylor's girls were 2, she was able to pull her life together and decided she wanted to become a cosmetologist. But unfortunately, addiction shows no mercy, not even for young mothers trying to do their best. In August, she started downslipping again. Both sets of grandparents was doing their best to help with the twins. The McAllisters had children younger than Taylor, and in fear of the impact Taylor's addiction may be having on them, her parents had to do something, so they implemented tough love when it came to Taylor and her addiction. She had tried everything they could think of to help Taylor, but nothing was working. It's a very tough situation for a parent to be in when you exhaust all your resources in trying to find help for your child after addiction takes over. Taylor eventually moved out. Her and her husband lived in his car for a while. Her drug use became so out of control, and she lost custody of her twins. In September On her mother's birthday, she messaged her mom to tell her happy birthday and that she loved her. Unfortunately, this would be the last contact she would have with her daughter. She started hanging around with shady people, not knowing what danger lied ahead of her and the monster that waited ahead of her. She started using the Backpage site and met Robert Butler. After Taylor's husband entered rehab in October, she started spending a lot of time with Robert. He was a wealthy man that owned a company in Florida. It has been stated she moved in with him and he started off spoiling her with money, clothes, and all the drugs she wanted. But soon he started controlling her. She wasn't allowed to have contact with anyone and started treating her like she was part of his property. She had lost control of her life at the hands of a monster. On December 22nd, Taylor's mom unsuspectingly was called to her boss's office while at work. She had 2 visitors awaiting her, and after she entered the office, she was told Taylor's body was found earlier that morning. During the same time, Taylor's dad also got a surprise visit, telling him the horrific news. Taylor's body was discovered around 7:45 a.m. by a man searching for aluminum cans. They were told it was being treated as a homicide, but there was no trauma to her body, or so they said. They made funeral arrangements on Christmas Eve, but it was 6 days later, on the day they were having the service for her, they were able to see her. They had decided on an open casket because they were told there was no sign of trauma, but to their dismay, she had a considerable amount of trauma on her body, including her arms, forehead, ear, and neck. Her face was also swollen. Her parents were not told about any of this and did not expect to see their daughter in this condition. Days after her service, the parents were contacted and was told her death was looking like an overdose. They were just waiting on the medical examiner's ruling. Taylor's mother worked in the medical field and knew this could not be true. Something extreme had happened to Taylor because she was bruised from head to toe, but they had to wait for the autopsy results. During the wait, some alarming information was told to Taylor's mom. Seems a police officer was at the ER and told some of the staff members that Taylor's death was going to be due to an overdose because she was a junkie whore. The parents filed a complaint and the officer was reprimanded for his actions, but this was just the beginning of their experience with the police department. In February 2017, the results came back and her death was ruled a homicide by asphyxiation by the hands of another. Only cocaine and metabolites shown up in her tox screen, but she had not done drugs ever since 5 days before her death. When the detective on her case found out it was homicide, he would not accept the medical examiner's results, saying they screwed up. Why was he so hell-bent on closing Taylor's case with the cause of death being an overdose? Taylor's husband gave them information on where Taylor had been staying and with whom, which represented another problem. Robert Butler and his family are wealthy business owners. Then some of Taylor's friends from school started receiving messages stating Robert did this to Taylor. The story was that after he hurt her badly, he got scared and called some guys to come over to help him in his situation. When the men arrived, Robert took them to his bedroom, where she laid on the bed moaning in pain. Robert told the men he needed her out of the house. One man spoke up and said they needed to call 911, but Robert refused because he had drugs in the house and he was a felon. They loaded her in the back seat of Robert's truck, and at this point, she was unable to walk or talk. After leaving Robert's house, 8 hospitals was drove past without stopping to get her help. As they drove around trying to decide what to do, Taylor passed away. When they noticed she had died, the men called Robert and told him, and all he had said about it was, "Don't bring her back here. Get rid of her." They took her to the alley and dumped her body, then ran over her when they were leaving. Why? To make sure she was dead? It's a disgrace. The men returned to Robert's house and burned their clothes and Taylor's belongings in Robert's fireplace. On the day she was found, the police went to Robert's house and questioned him. He stated he didn't know her, only met her 2 or 3 times, and she did not live there. He stated he had not seen her in 8 days. The officer observed scratches on Robert's face and bruising all around his shoulder. No search warrant was issued until 1 year later, but it wasn't for Taylor's case. It was federal charges for money laundering. He was asked to give a DNA sample, but he asked to speak to his attorney and then asked the police to leave his property. They did find Taylor's guitar and Bible at Robert's house. It was finally proved that Robert's DNA was under Taylor's fingernails and on her neck. She also had tape residue on her wrists. After Taylor's death was ruled a homicide, there were no murder charges nor manslaughter charges. The only charges related to her killer are 3 counts of failing to report a death. Robert Butler III, Deanna Baker, and Corin Archer were all charged with failure to report a death, a misdemeanor in the state of Florida. That's what Robert Butler III, Corin Archer, pled guilty to. Robert was sentenced to 1 year in jail, and the other guy, only 6 months. Demon Washington, the third man, was never charged in connection with Taylor's case. Even though the autopsy said Taylor McAllister was killed, they say they don't know where or when she died, who was responsible, and if there was intent to kill. To charge somebody with murder, you've got to have evidence, and the person committed the murder, Chief Assistant State Attorney Bruce Bartlett said. They also stated her body was in poor shape from drug abuse. She had hepatitis, kidney failure, and bacterial growth on her heart valves that can come from using dirty needles. She had abscess in her lungs and suffered a stroke. But the fact remains, she was murdered. No matter what was her health conditions, it was ruled a homicide. The following clip we are about to show is one of the men speaking to the police about the activities that happened that day that Robert called him and another man. The other clip is Taylor's mother visiting the alleged murderer in jail, asking him what happened to her daughter.
She was alive. You didn't
Okay.
But she's like, like going crazy.
Okay.
So then she couldn't walk.
Okay.
And she was cursing. I remember. She was on the bed. She really wasn't doing like that, but she was just like, you tell she high. She was like, she's doing this on the bed, she's cursing and stuff. She just died.
Okay. Where did she die?
In the truck.
Okay, so let's back up, because you're going from in the house where she's high, laying on the bed, moving around.
We got in the truck. She got in the truck.
Okay, so how did she get in the truck?
We helped her get in there.
Okay, who's we? How does the girl get from the bed to inside the truck? And she's still alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right. So if she's alive, does she walk at all, or who carries her? Do you carry her?
No.
Okay, does Dee carry her? Does Dee carry her?
It's not bad.
It's she's alive, right?
Yes.
Okay, so she's obviously too high on drugs to walk herself, right? So somebody's got to carry her, right? Nobody's in trouble, right? To carry a girl who's alive to a truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who carries her to the truck? Mm-hmm. Does Dee carry her to a truck, or does that other guy carry her to a truck?
She stopped on it. And then she fell. I felt she ended up laying down to the side like that.
Okay.
So it started stinking.
She laying down all the way or leaning against the door?
She was like, I don't know. I know
she on her side, her back?
She was, you know, you sit up and you lay down like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Okay.
So I thought she moved on herself. Just to be nasty.
She
but,
what?
You know what? I thought she moved on herself. But you know what? She probably did have. I don't know if she had, because I don't know. But I know, I was like, Miss, you boob. I promised to God with my mama. I said, Miss, you boob on yourself? So I was like, oh my God, why would you do that? I turned around and I'm like, I didn't even know dead bodies, they stuff fall out or whatever it's called when you die. It's just stink. I didn't know that. So I'm talking to her why she was dead.
Did you check her pulse?
I ain't touched that lady.
You didn't touch her at all?
I ain't touched that lady. You give me a polygraph. I ain't touched that lady.
As soon as Archer touched her arm, she was, she was moaning and groaning.
I was screwed, so I said, hey, bro. And I'm like, bro, what the f? I said, y'all finna get me in trouble, bro. Mm-hmm. And that's just how I said, y'all. I said, bro, this lady. No, actually, I didn't. When I hopped out, they came in. man, you seen him? And he's like, she dead. So when I heard that,
That's
I
what
hopped
you
out the
got.
truck. I said, hell no.
No, who told you she was dead? D?
They said they think well, D didn't know. But he was like, hey, what's wrong? So they were like that. So that was that.
I called him again. She had to come back. We have to do what's right. She had to come back. No, she can't come back here. That's what he told me. She can't come back here. You know what I mean? So Arch and Desmond said, okay, we have to bury a hole, you know what I mean? Or Late McGore is here. We have to, no, y'all can't do this. Just leave her. Just leave her. And that's what I told him to do.
I kept saying, call the police, bro. I was like, please. And I was scared, and my heart beat my heart. Like, literally, you can hear it. So I was like, bro, and I was like, you know.
How did that happen? Explain to me how that happened. Well, let me ask you this. How did you pick the area that you guys... Did you pick the area? Did you follow somebody there? Or did you all get in a car together, or what?
Well,
So you guys argued outside the truck, right? Well, you didn't. The other guys did, right? Okay. So, you guys realized
okay,
she
what
was...
I can tell you is it was the...
At this point, Taylor's family has suffered the worst pain imaginable a parent of a child could endure without getting any kind of justice for their daughter. It's been said that being able to bury a loved one brings closure, but to know your child was beaten and choked as she tried to fight a man off, then thrown out like yesterday's trash, then ran over by someone to make sure she was dead, but no one is arrested in her murder is not closure. It's injustice. She did not die because of an overdose, natural cause, or illness. She was beaten and choked. She died at the hands of another. Then, the mishandling of her case by law enforcement tops it off. Taylor's parents will never give up their fight for justice for her. Now the two beautiful little souls she gave birth to will never be taught to strum a guitar or sing by their mother. Everything was taken away from them. True, she was an addict, but who knows what wonderful things may have happened if she wasn't murdered. Plus, just because she was an addict, she did not deserve to die, and did not die of drugs. The administrators of the Missing Truth are sending prayers of strength to Taylor's family on their journey to justice. May you find some kind of peace in this evil world. For further updates on Taylor's case, subscribe to the Missing Truth to receive notifications. Like us and leave us a comment. Follow us here on YouTube, like our Facebook page, and join our private Facebook group. You can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram. If you have a family member or a friend that is missing or has been murdered and you feel they have not received enough exposure or justice, you can contact us at themissingtruth1@gmail.com or send us a private message on our Facebook page. Always remember, some sort of truth remains in a lie. Have a good night.